Hello and welcome to Diary of a Common Man. My name is Salim Lalani, and I hope that you are well and I hope that you are enjoying the festive season. Today we're going to talk about Jamaat Khana. In fact, an announcement has been made in Australia that the first Jamaat Khana to be built in Australia is going to be built in Melbourne. And to buy the land and to construct the Jamaat Khana, obviously, the funding arrangements have been announced. Whether people will participate in large numbers or not, only time will tell. But today, before you decide, if you're listening to me in Melbourne, if you are thinking of making a contribution, I would like to make sure that you make an informed choice. Rather than acting on impulses, rather than acting on blind faith, rather than acting on irrationality. But before we talk about Melbourne Jamaat Khana to be built, I would like to take you back 50 years ago. I would like to take you back to the history of Ismailis or Agakhanis in Australia. And then we will understand the perspective about what I'm going to talk about in relation to Melbourne Jamaat Khana. It was more than 50 years ago that first Agakhanis began arriving in Australia. In particular, after the Ugandan crisis in East Africa, they settled in Sydney, the commercial center, the heart of Australia. It was obvious choice. It was here that employment was to be found. It was here that there was an established Indian community, although a very small Indian community, but nevertheless, there was something. They settled, they held the Jamaat Khana in somebody's house, then they began hiring community halls, then they hired Masonic temples and continued to hire them for next 50 years. In fact, even as we speak, they have Jamaat Khanas in places that are rented. And that is important to understand. And that will give us a perspective around the Melbourne Jamaat Khana construction. All was good until I came, or rather, I detached from the Ismaili or AgaKhani faith. And then things started to go a little bit pear shaped for the Australian Jamaat, particularly the leadership. After I started my campaign, there have been few actions taken by the Australian leadership. They had to respond to the challenges presented by my campaign. What challenges? A common man challenging the system, a system created by Aga Khan himself, created by the dynasty, rather, Aga Khan dynasty. And it is actually overseen by the current Aga Khan, although that is not exactly right. At the moment, it is not being overseen by AgaKhan. It is overseen by his stooges. But nevertheless, we will not talk about the stooges. We don't know them. Okay. But yeah, a powerful system, multi-billionaires, political cloud, a system that strong. What is this common man talking about? Challenging it. And accordingly, the Australian Jamaat responded to his challenges. What is that? Let's talk about it. A lot of people who have been following me throughout my campaign, which started in 2021, they might know, but those people who don't know or see my videos off and on, for them, it is important for me to summarize what happened since my campaign began, to give them the perspective around the challenges thrown at the leadership in Australia. In 2021, I started my social media campaign, and within a couple of months, the system was intimidated. Now, how do we know they were intimidated? Because they legally threatened me. Not Aga Khan, at this point in time at least. The leadership in Australia, Mr. Karim Sumar was the president of the Australia New Zealand Council at that time, and he sent me a letter demanding that I take my videos off or take them down from social media, and I refused to do that. So that was first intimidation. They could have ignored me like they normally do. They ignore, they ignore, they hide. That is their strategy. That has been their strategy traditionally, not only in Australia, everywhere else. They do not deal with, they did not really react or respond to rebels like me. But I became the first rebel that intimidated them. But why? What was it? Why did I intimidate them? Intimidate them to the point of getting them to send me a legal threat. Because I became the first person to come from the Jamaat Khana itself. I was a leader in the Jamaat Khana, and I knew the insides and outsides of the Jamaat Khana, how it worked, what are the good things about it, and what are not so good things about it. I knew them. I knew all the secrets. I knew the deception. I knew the lies. And I had the evidence of it. And I presented it on social media. That is why. And most importantly, I was not a faceless person. Like there are lots of people working on social media against the system. I was not faceless. I identified myself, and that intimidated them with obviously the truth with evidence that they could not handle. But I refused to take my videos down, and I challenged them to come to me and answer my questions, respond to the allegations, and they declined to do that. It is now 4 years since they have been hiding from me. Not one Ismaili Actually, that is not right. A couple of Ismailis did come on the channel, but they made a complete fool of themselves. And obviously, there were announcements made in the Jamaat Khana that no Jamaati member should approach the social media. Obviously, the more people come to attempt to answer the allegations, the more trouble they're going to create for the system. So it is a policy. It is called Ostrich Policy. It is about digging your head in the sand in times of challenges. And Salim Lalani's campaign became a challenge. Nobody was allowed to come. No missionary came, although missionaries, since my campaign, came to Australian Jamaats. They gave the viases, but they did not have the guts. They cannot have the guts to face the real questions, real allegations, without the controlled situation of the Jamaat Khana. They cannot survive outside the Jamaat Khana. Their knowledge is limited to a cocoon. It is a cocoon. Jamaat Khana is a cocoon. Inside the cocoon, they work, they thrive. But no sooner that cocoon is broken, they dissolve. They dissolve. Missionaries did not come, the leaders did not come, and Aga Khan did not come. How can he? How can he? Anyway, that is a little bit of a background. So, because I was part of my campaign was not only about making the Jamaat aware that they are being fooled, it was about making the government aware, and I did that in Australia. In Sydney. Sydney happens to be in the state of New South Wales. Once again, Sydney has been a headquarters Jamaat Khana in Australia. Along with time, satellite Jamaat Khanas like Melbourne, Adelaide, Brisbane, etc., Perth, they sprung up. But they were satellite Jamaat Khanas, and they are satellite Jamaat Khanas as we speak. But a few days ago, they brought a piece of land to build the first Jamaat Khana in Melbourne. Why Melbourne? That is a question a lot of people are asking, according to my informants inside the Jamaat Khana. Why Melbourne? After all, it all started in Sydney. Sydney, as we speak, happens to be the headquarters Jamaat Khana. Sydney, as we speak, has the largest population of Agakhanis in Australia. In fact, in Australia and New Zealand. So why Melbourne and why not Sydney? Because now I cannot claim this to be right, but it could be one of the hypotheses, one of the possibilities. The reason is that I have notified the government of New South Wales. And this is important for you people to understand. Those of you listening to me outside of Australia, it is important to understand that Sydney and Melbourne, they are located in different states. And I have not been working with the governments in Melbourne. Melbourne is located in the state of Victoria, and I don't live there. And I have not worked with the governments in Victoria. I have been working with the government in New South Wales, where Sydney happens to be. And it is here that I think the government is aware of the reality of the operations of agakhanis. Possibly that is the reason why the Jamaat Khana is not being built in Sydney, rather, it is built in Melbourne. As a coming back to my campaign and the response of the Aga Khanis, one of the first responses, because my allegations were pretty serious, I alleged that there is money laundering happening, the registration of the Jamaat Khana is illegal, the Nandi is a violation of the Food Act. There were few illegal and there are few illegal activities happening as we speak. As a result of that, they first of all established AgaKhan Foundation in Australia. There was no need for it. A small Jamaat like Australia, AgaKhan Foundation has got no purpose, no need for AgaKhan Foundation to be here because nobody is going to donate to them here. They are not well known. And the Jamaat is not going to donate either. Jamaat doesn't need help from Aga Khan Foundation, but they had to because they had to bring the credibility of Aga Khan Foundation and AKDN to protect itself as a buffer, to protect itself from the past wrongdoings. How far is Aga Khan Foundation going to protect it? Protect the wrongdoings of the past? Only time will tell. But they had to bring Aga Khan Foundation. Since my campaign, in fact, in 2023 and in 2023, they also established an Ismaili charitable trust. For 55 years, they did not need it, but they needed it after I began my campaign in 2021 and completely exposed the illegal activities of the Jamaat Khana. That's what happened. Those are the challenges I presented, and I'm still posing a challenge to the system in New South Wales, in Sydney. Hopefully, whenever I get more funding, I will be working in other states of Australia to make other governments aware of what is going on. But at least I've started in Sydney, and I am positively sure that the Jamaat in Sydney has heard me. They have accepted my message, and my message is do not give to AgaKhan, give to the poor. It has been accepted, it has been heard, it has been noted, and it is validated, it is verified by the fact that they could not meet the target for Jamaati Services Fund last year, and they could not. The Jamaati Awal Sufro has been declining by the day. So I take this opportunity to thank Sydney Jamaat and, of course, the Jamaats across the world from where I get messages that the Awal Sufro has gone down dramatically, which is an indicator that the global Jamaat has taken my message, they have noted my message, and they are convinced by it that there is something wrong within the system. In fact, it is a fraudulent system. Agakhanis are being taken for a ride. Taken for a ride by not only Aga Khan, but they are being taken for a ride by their leaders. Leaders are rolling in wealth and luxury, and so is Aga Khan. While the poor man or the common man in the Jamaat Khana is struggling to pay the mortgage, and then he has to pay left, right, and center once he enters the Jamaat Khana for one thing or the other, one pretension or the other pretension. The latest pretension is building of the Jamaat Khana in Melbourne. Now, let's come to the Melbourne Jamaat Khana. The president of Australia and New Zealand, I forgot the lady's name, she made a presentation in Melbourne Jamaat Khana, and it was live streamed across Australia and New Zealand. So every Jamaat Khana could benefit from her presentation. And the beginning of the presentation started with a lie. Lie. Without the lies, the system cannot work. It started with a farman of Maulana Hazar Imam sending blessings for Melbourne Jamaat Khana. It's a lie. A man who has been off the public records for last 3 years, he is sending a farman. It is obvious, even a dumb person can understand that the farman was created by the stooges, congratulating the Melbourne Jamaat for the Jamaat Khana. Anyway, it started with a lie. And then another thing that I noticed in the presentation was that they had to play videos of Toronto Jamaat Khana to hype people up when they got their Jamaat Khana in Toronto, how people were excited and how they were happy. So they wanted the Melbourne Jamaat to be happy. Now, the Melbourne Jamaat can't be happy without seeing other Ismailis happy. So to make them happy, to create the hype, they played a video of people saying, "Oh, how blessed I am to have my own Jamaat Khana. This is going to be with us for the rest of our lives and our children," and blah and blah. And older people speaking in other vernaculars, emotional game that they usually and normally play. After that, they started talking business. And they said that, look, by the grace of Mola, he has granted an approval for Melbourne Jamaat Khana. We have brought a piece of land, and now we will be working with the councils to have the place of religion, a place of worship approved. Now, here, I would like to point out to Agakhanis and non-Agakhanis as well that Jamaat Khana is not a place of worship, because place of worship is a church, temple, mosque, where they pray to a god or a deity. Places where a living person is worshipped is not called a place of worship. It is called a cult. That is by definition. Yeah. Have you ever seen a place of worship where a living person comes and they pray to him? Once the person dies, they pray in his memory. Like, for example, there are temples about Sri Satya Sai Baba. Whilst he was alive, there were no temples worshipping him. It was a cult. Anyway, so worshipping AgaKhan is not a place of worship, it is a cult. So whether the council, the government of Victoria, whether they will realize that this is not a place of worship, whether they will realize or not, only time will tell. Then they spoke about the funding, obviously. Who's going to fund it? Is Hazar Imam going to fund? Is AgaKhan going to fund? He's a poor man. Okay. He's only got $7 billion. I mean, come on. How is he going to fund a Jamaat Khana which is worth $3.6 million? So you can't expect him to fund. So obviously the common man will fund it. because he is rich. Common man has got a lot of money. Yeah. So obviously they came to the common man in Melbourne and they said that look, 3.6 million is the target, at least in the first phase, in the buying of the land. $300 a month is what you have to pay for next 12 months. And then we'll see what happens after that. Now, do these people, my question to the Agakhanis and non Agakhanis out there who are listening to me, question, do these leaders have any shame for slugging payments on the common man who has to run a family, who has to pay income tax, who has to pay the dasond, who has to pay 101 different rituals, membership fees, mehmanis, and then for the Jamaat Khana. All this in times where the living costs are rising astronomically. Do you have any shame, Aga Khan? Do you have any shame, the leadership of Aga Khan? Do you have any shame, the leadership of Melbourne? Any shame at all? You should be giving money. And here's the best part. They say Mola has gracefully allowed us to buy Jamaat Khana. Do you have any shame? Are you really educated? Are you really educated? Or do you have a piece of paper in your hand which is called a degree or a master's or a bachelor's or a PhD? Do you have 1 ounce of brain? Do you have a brain? Sorry. It is the Jamaat that doesn't have the brain. We'll talk about them in a minute. You have the brain. I agree. I'm sorry. You have the brain, but do you have any shame? No. If you have 1 ounce of shame to not to slug the common man, you wouldn't be asking him for money. On every single step, you wouldn't be. You have proved it to the world that you are one shameless leadership community. Coming to the people who are giving, do you have 1 ounce of gray matter in your head? 1 ounce. I'm not talking about those people who have understood and who have stopped giving the money. Thank you for those people using your gray matter. Thank you. Well done. Keep the money for yourself. And if you've got too much to give it to the poor. Give it to the needy. You don't have to go far. You will find them in your own Jamaat Khana. Give it to them. Give it to them. But do not give these fraudsters. Do not give these fraudsters. These people are loaded. These people can build 10 Jamaat Khanas in a snap of a finger. They are abusing you. They are abusing you. Look into my eyes. They are abusing you. Do not give your hard-earned money. Keep it for yourself. Keep it for yourself. Give it to the poor. He will bless you. The blessing will come from the heart. It will come from the heart. It will come from the heart. And when that touches you, God will himself descend down. You will not have to go to Jamaat Khana. God will come to your house. your house will become a Jamaat Khana. Anyway, I'm sorry I got a little bit emotional there. But yeah, $300 a month. Now, one more thing before I finish this presentation. Jamaat Khana, what is a Jamaat Khana? Some people say a place of worship. We go there to worship our Mola. Mola who has given us everything. I don't know what he has given you. I know you have given him. That I know. But if you know, if he has given you anything, would you like to come forward and tell us what did he give you apart from BS? What else did he give you? Anyway, yeah, they say he is the giver of everything. Yeah, okay. So yeah, we worship, place of worship. Jamaat Khana is a place of worship. It is for some people. It is a social club. Not some people. For most people, I would say 90% of the people. It is a club. It is a social and political club. It is a place where people go to socialize, to show off, and fulfill their aspirations of getting into leadership positions. And I don't see anything wrong with that. Honestly, I don't. Okay. But the abuse of the poor people, abuse of Islam in the name of charity, in the name of worship, that is wrong. Anyway, so yeah, for some people, it is a place of worship. Other people, it is a club. But it is neither. It is actually a business. But you will never have seen a business like this anywhere, anywhere in the world. This is a unique business. In a normal business, what happens? You want to start a business, you buy a shop or you rent a shop. Where do you get the money from for buying a shop or renting a shop? Where do you get it from? From your own pocket. Your money. If you don't have it, you borrow it from the bank. But the bank owns it. And you are indebted to the bank until you return the money. So it is your money that you will invest. If things go pear-shaped, bank is not responsible, you are responsible. That is what happens when you venture out into a business. Your money. But Aga Khan system is a business where he doesn't have to put his own money. The customer puts his money in it, and then customer comes to that shop to buy products. So in a normal business, the businessman invests the money and sells goods and services, and customers come and buy goods and services, and the businessman earns a profit and makes a living out of it. Aga Khan makes a living out of it by same thing with Aga Khan, nothing different there. Aga Khan also sells goods and services in the Jamaat Khana. The only thing is that they are abstract in nature. They are spiritual in nature. The goods and services. Yeah? Khana vadan. Khana vadan. May Allah give you barakat. May this happen and that happen. The bullshit. And you pay good money after that. So you still buy the goods and services, which are you know what. But you also pay for the shop. Find me one community which pays for the shop. Yes, people contribute for the mandir. Yes, people contribute for the mandir, but that's a completely different scenario. Yes, people contribute for the church. Yes, they contribute for the mosque, but it's a completely different scenario. It does not, the profits do not go in one man's pocket. It doesn't. In Aga Khani system, the profit belongs to one person and one person only. It is another matter that nowadays people are dipping their hands into it and making a fortune out of your hard-earned money. That is the difference between a normal traditional idea of a business and an Aga Khani business. You pay for the shop and you buy the products, goods, and services, and you think he gives you, there is something wrong with your head. If you are still giving, you must go and see a psychiatrist. You must go and see a psychiatrist because you are not able to confront me in relation to this matter, which is an evidence of the fact that you are completely lost. There is something wrong with you. So, if this presentation has made a difference, it has made you understand that you should not pay for somebody's business and you should not buy abstract, non existing goods and services. You should not buy bullshit. If this presentation has done that, congratulations. If it still hasn't, I am still here. I will continue to make these presentations until it sinks into your mind, it sinks into your head that you are being fooled. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a great time. I'll see you next week. Look after yourself. Goodbye.